All right. Good afternoon. Happy Valentine's Day, and welcome to another Selena USA Titan Professional webinar. Today, we are looking at some frequently asked questions about drywall, and we are going to review Don't Make This Drywall Mistake. I have with us here Samuel Kalishaw, our marketing director, and I am James DeVoli, the product manager. So we will go ahead and jump right in to the Don't Make This Mistake in Frequently Asked Questions webinar. So the agenda for today is we'll look at the frequently asked questions about drywall. We'll also go into what is drywall, why do we use it, and Samuel will kind of go through an article that he has made. And then we're going to look at some problems and the cost of these problems to your business. And then last, we'll look at the causes of these problems, the solutions and preventions that can be put in place. And we'll do a final summary with some questions and then where you can find us and a thank you. So, first, we'll get into some frequently asked questions about drywall. And some of the common questions that we get, and you may see as well, what is drywall? Why do we use drywall? What problems are faced with drywall work? What do these problems cost? And last but not least, what are the causes of these problems and how can we solve and prevent them? So this next part of what is drywall and why do we use, I will pass over to Samuel. And here we are, good sir.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on the webinar today, James. So this is kind of the starting question. Obviously, drywall is super common. I don't know about the people watching this or yourself, James, but I'm near drywall basically all the time, whether I'm at home or at work or we're on a job site or wherever. It's so common in all construction, residential, commercial, or whatever. And it's in every house, it's in every building. And so I published this article recently um, that I just titled "What is Drywall and Why Do We Use It?" And I know for myself, when I'm publishing something like this, a lot of times I'm wondering this question as well. And so this is just some of what I learned. So drywall is basically just this crushed up mineral called calcium sulfate dihydrate, and they use it to make all sorts of different forms of drywall, whether it's sound resistant, fire resistant, um, soundproof. There's all sorts of types that they use in construction. It's also called gypsum, but basically, due to its fire resistant properties and some of its just durability, I would say, is why it's so common. It's a relatively affordable material as well. And so basically, they take this mineral and crush it and put it in between these sheets of heavy paper or fiberglass. And those are the drywall sheets that we know today. And so you can see it in one of those pictures, a guy handling a drywall sheet. But basically, the reason why um, they use it, or we use it in construction today, are these reasons that are listed here. It goes up quick. People can install it quickly. I know James and I have both watched many drywall installers install drywall. You can see videos on YouTube or wherever, and it goes up very quickly. It's it's more affordable than like plaster or other ways people might put up walls. It's just a little more affordable. It's versatile. That you can cut it to any shape. I mean, obviously it comes in these like rectangular 4x8 shapes, but it can kind of go into any architectural style or what have you. it the gypsum has water in it in its molecular structure, and basically, uh, it kind of turns into a steam whenever it burns, and so it's fire resistant. And so it's also provides some sound insulation. Obviously, you wouldn't know that if you're in the Titan Professional offices, but that's a joke for James, inside joke for James. But it does provide some sound insulation, and it's relatively easy to like repair, whether it's your kid knocks a small hole in the wall, or a door flies open and knocks a little hole in the wall. You can repair it relatively easily with a patch or something. And so, why it's used overall is just its speed and cost effectiveness, and then its fire resistance overall. And so there are some like challenges as to why it's used. I cover that in the article as well. Some reasons why it obviously it's not, as with all construction materials, there's pros and cons. And so it is sensitive to moisture. Um, it's relatively soft. It could crumble or something. I don't know if you've worked with drywall before. It can get kind of crumbly. In the installation process, there's some taping and mudding involved. It's not a perfectly clean installation that you might look for. To actually get a really smooth look, it does require a little bit of work. That's why, like a lot of our customers that are installing drywall, obviously these people are professionals, and it is an art. And there's a lot of finesse that goes into it, I would say. Then obviously one of the issues too are these screw pops, and James is going to get into this more. But that is one of the downsides to using it. The screw or nail can pop through the drywall, and there's going to be some repair involved in that if you get to that stage. But overall, that's kind of why we use drywall, what it is. It's a neat construction material, very common, but I think a lot of people just don't know these aspects, and that's why we published this article recently.
No, thank you, Samuel. Yeah, one of my favorite reasons why I use drywall would be because of it's easily to be repaired. I mean,
Yep.
I have a 2-year-old. You got kids at your house. Yeah, quite literally a foot through the drywall, a quick patch, no problem. This is easily repaired by most residential homeowners. So it's a great product for many other reasons as well. But we will go ahead and get over to thank you, Samuel, for going through your article and kind of walking us through what is drywall and why we use it. We're going to get next into our topic of some of the problems that you can have with drywall and what these problems could cost you. So, the first question that we're going to kind of discuss, what problems are faced with drywall work? So, some of the most common problems faced with drywall work would include screw or nail pops, as you see here over on the right. The next would be some butt joint cracks, and then you'll have some overcutting or undercutting for electrical boxes that could lead to a blowout. You can have some underbedding of the tape, so then the tape starts to show after many different seasons of heating and cooling.
That's what my garage looks like.
Yeah, same in my garage. It's
Yep.
not enough putty on top, and then if you sand it too much, is another way that you could have the tape showing. And so those are some very common problems to have when working with drywall. And the hard part is that although these problems they might look minor to the eye, aesthetic problems to a homeowner are very huge as far as how they view their home for reliability, quality, and really just their essence of safety and comfort. That's what a homeowner is looking for: safety, comfort, quality. And when they see things like screw pops or uh, butt crack joints or over sanded drywall. It's not aesthetically pleasing, and it gives them a little concern about the quality of the workmanship for that drywall that had been hung, and maybe even quality of their house. So, what do these problems cost? Really, let's take a step back, because at first you have the original cost of the job. So you go in, it's a residential new build, your drywall crew is putting all the drywall up. They've taped, they've puttied, they've sanded, and they've passed inspection, ready to go for the next crew. Okay, so that's time, that's material, and you're going to use quite a lot of both time and material for that new build. And so the original job cost is part of something that could cause a problem for your company, which we'll get into. Um, what do these problems cost is really, let me reword that in a sense of, if you got a call back from one of these problems, what will that problem cost your business? So, as an example, we'll just run through the screw or nail pop. These are very common. But as an example, you go in, you've put in your drywall, and you've got everything passed and inspected. So the original cost of the job is one thing that's going to cost you if you get a call back. The second part is going to be the cost to tear down the demo part. To fix that problem, you're going to have to take your crew off of a new build, which is going to help make you money. You're going to have to take them off of that job site to go and fill in or fix or correct or demo part of the construction that was already completed. So you're losing labor hours on new completions to get built and to start making you money today. Instead, you're having to pull them to go fix jobs that were already completed, but possibly poorly, or some things have happened that caused a callback. So now that your crew has to go and have this tear down, so to speak, you're losing business, right? Anytime your crew is out having to make repairs, that crew can't be out putting in new drywall on new builds. So you've lost the original cost of the job, you've lost the cost to the tear down, you've lost labor hours to go and do this remodeling, this rebuild from the problem. You've lost business, new business that you could have been taking instead of repairing this job, tearing it down. The repair labor hours plus the material are things that you're losing uh, during these problems of nail pops, the blowouts, the butt crack joints. These are all very, very costly to your business from a labor and material standpoint. But you're also just losing new business every time you're having to do it. you've you've lost the opportunities of these new businesses because you're out making the repairs to these screw or nail pops, to this butt joint crack, to the over sanding. And so really, what does this problem cost you? It could cost you quite a bit. Really, in essence, it could cost you your company's reputation for quality. And and homeowners and home builders, they're looking for quality work to be done. That's what a home builder is really wanting at the end of the day. They want quality work. A homeowner wants a quality house. So really, all of these problems, they cost you your company's reputation. And if your company loses its reputation, this could cost you your business. So these problems, they might seem small, because they're really aesthetic. They're not necessarily always structural. They may be just the aesthetic, but these aesthetic problems, they could cost you your business if they're not taken care of properly, if they're not prevented, and if there's not solutions to these problems. That's what could happen. So let's talk about what might cause some of these problems. and maybe some solutions and preventions to these problems so that way they don't happen in the future. So, what are the causes and how can we solve or prevent them? So, what are the causes of these problems? I'm going to take a look at this publication from JLC, which is the Journal of Light Construction. In here, they talk about avoiding the most common construction defects. And in there, their number one is cosmetic. And that cosmetic number one for callbacks is screw or nail pops. Screw and nail pops are the number one problem that as a drywaller you're going to face because it's the number one callback you will have to go and repair. So this is the number one lost reason of business for the drywall company to get new business. It's also the number one reason homeowners or home builders will have a callback. And it's the number one thing that homeowners associate quality house and the aesthetic side of their home. So this is a huge, huge opportunity for as a home builder and as a drywaller to really hone in and fix, solve, and prevent. So that way you can knock out this number one reason for a homeowner to call back and get replaced the aesthetic part of the screw or nail pop. So in this article, they talked about there was a Nightline segment in 2016 where one lady went through her new build and found over 800 drywall screw pops. Okay, over 800. There's approximately 4,000 screws in a 2,000 square foot house. So you're talking, like 20% of this lady's house had screw or nail pops in it. That is a lot. 800 drywall screw pops. Okay. That's a lot. That's a huge callback. That's a huge cost to that home builder and to that reputation of the home builder and the drywaller. Huge, huge cost. So, one of the things we're going to look at what could cause these screw or nail pops? What's the cause behind them? If they're the number one problem for callbacks in the nation, what's causing this callback to happen? Okay. Well, some causes could include the wet framing of the house. It didn't get completely dried out. Could also be the settling of the house. There could be some screws or nails that have been driven too deep in the gypsum board into that drywall sheet. They've been embedded instead of flush with the drywall. They've been pushed in too far, causing too much strain on that fastener. So these are some of the reasons or some of the causes to this number one problem for callbacks. The framing being too wet, there's been settling of the house, or the screw and nail has been driven in too deep to this gypsum board and it's underneath the surface of the gypsum board instead of flush with the surface. So how could we solve or prevent some of these? Well, you have a few options. You could dry the framing of the house. A lot of home builders put in a dehumidifier to really help dry out the wood before the drywall crew comes in. That's awesome. That's a good prevention right there. There's not much you can do about the settling of the house. That's just going to happen naturally. So in a 2,000 square foot house, I mentioned there was about 4,000 screws. So if you're driving in screws or nails each time, one way to prevent them from coming loose is you drive it in perfect each time, and you hope that there's no settling of the house, and you hope that the wood was completely dried out, ready to go for this drywall. So as a drywaller, if you're putting it perfectly flush, even putting it perfectly flush won't guarantee you that screw or nail won't pop out. So one of the last things that you could do is you could use a drywall adhesive. And drywall adhesives are made to help prevent screw and nail pops. That's what they're made for. But not all drywall adhesives are okay to use. So this kind of leads me into my next part of the solution and prevention. We know what the cause is. The cause could be the wet framing, could be the settling, could be driving in the screw or nail too deep and it's embedded in that drywall. So some of the solutions are one of the preventions would be using a drywall adhesive, but is any drywall adhesive okay to use? First, I want to point back to one of our previous webinars where we went through 6 building codes you didn't know. And in there, I talk about what specific drywall adhesive what this drywall adhesive needs to meet in order to be considered a drywall adhesive and in order to meet regulations for this new build. So in order to use a drywall adhesive, you can't just use any adhesive. You can't go to get Elmer's wood glue and use it as a drywall adhesive. You have to get specific product that's been tested to code. So go back and check out our 6 building codes you didn't know, and you'll see the code that I'm referencing here. So in these drywall adhesives, there's different categories or almost different products in a sense of what can be used. You have caulk adhesive, you have polyurethane adhesive. And so which one's okay to use? You know, which one would you prefer to use and which one is best to prevent and solve the problem of screw pop or nail pops? Well, according to USG, one of the largest gypsum board drywall sheet manufacturers in the United States, one of the largest. According to their research for fastener related drywall installation issues and their recommendations, they did testing with caulk adhesive, low VOC caulk adhesive, water based caulk adhesive, and solvent based caulk adhesive, and they found that all of these different forms of caulk adhesive will still allow screw pops to happen because the caulk adhesive will shrink during the curing process. And what do they mean by it shrinks during the curing process? That water or that solvent in that caulk adhesive evaporates. So it leaves the caulk adhesive, it shrinks, and it actually will separate from either the stud or separate from the backing of the drywall. So now your adhesive, because it's shrinked, it's no longer adhering to the back of the gypsum board, the back of that drywall, and to the stud. It's either adhering only to the stud or only to the back of that gypsum board. So really that adhesive is not doing much of anything. It can't prevent or solve any problem if it's not even doing its simple job of adhering the stud in the gypsum board. So based off of their research, if you can't use caulk adhesive because it's going to shrink, really that only leaves you with one solution, one prevention to the number one reason for callbacks, which are screw and nail pops. There's only one solution. There's only one prevention, and that's to use a polyurethane adhesive. In this polyurethane adhesive, make sure that it has been tested to ASTM D6464, ASTM C557, those regulations needed for a drywall adhesive to be used. That drywall adhesive, the polyurethane adhesives expand during their curing. So they don't shrink. Instead, they expand and they grab that drywall or that gypsum board and they permanently bond that drywall and gypsum board, that backing to the stud. When you're bonding that stud to the gypsum board and vice versa, what you're doing, if there's any house settling, the framing of the house moves, well, guess what? Your gypsum board now is moving with it. If there's any warping or condensation on the wood that causes it to expand or contrast, guess what? Your gypsum board's not going anywhere because it's been bonded from the top of that drywall in the top of that stud to the bottom. It's been bonded. It's not moving. In case you've driven a screw in or driven a nail in too deep in that gypsum board and put too much strain on that fastener, a polyurethane adhesive, because it expands, it actually will help adhere and bond the backing of that gypsum board to the stud, which relieves pressure. It relieves undue stress to that fastener, which now you're preventing screw pops, you're preventing nail pops because you've permanently bonded the backing of this drywall and the gypsum board to the stud. One great example of a polyurethane foam adhesive that has the technology to prevent screw and nail pops, to prevent the number one reason for callbacks, is the Tytan Professional drywall adhesive. It has been tested to the ASTM D6464, ASTM C557, and it has passed. It is a polyurethane adhesive that expands during its curing of 48 hours to permanently bond the backing of that drywall to the stud of your house, which will prevent any screw pop or nail pop from happening. So last, let's go through a summary and some questions that there might be. So, what is drywall and why do we use it? Samuel did a great explanation of this. Drywall is calcium sulfate dihydrate, and we use it because of the speed of application. Also, its cost effectiveness. What are some problems and what are the cost of these problems? The cost of a callback? Well, the number one reason for a callback is because of screw and nail pops. And this callback, it could cost you quite literally your business, the reputation of your business, your brand image as a home builder or drywall installer, which that could quite literally cost you your business. So last, what were some of the solutions and preventions? Well, there's really only one solution and prevention in my mind, and that's to use a polyurethane adhesive like the Tytan Professional drywall adhesive that will expand during the curing process to prevent screw and nail pops from ever happening. So last, we have, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We have 2 emails, a phone number you can reach out to us. We'll answer any of the questions you might have on the drywall webinar we just went through. We appreciate your time. Samuel, where can they find us?
Sure. Yeah, I would definitely recommend they check out our YouTube channel. We've got a lot of content like this up on there, answering questions about construction materials or adhesives and sealants, of course. We'll be exhibiting at 2 shows this year. We will be exhibiting at the Sunbelt Builder Show near our headquarters in Fort Worth, Texas, this summer, and then this fall we'll be at the STAFTA show in Nashville, Tennessee. Either one of these shows, you're welcome to come out and meet James and myself. We'll both be at our booth. We'll also be myself and a few others from Titan will be at the International Builders Show in a few weeks in Las Vegas. But yeah, overall, definitely check out our YouTube channel. We're on LinkedIn as well, but you're welcome to connect with us.
Awesome. Thank you, Samuel. And thank you, everyone, for showing up today and watching this frequently asked questions and the mistakes you don't want to make with drywall. Stay tuned for our next webinar. Thank you and have a great day.